All right. Starting with the first questions, it says use the graph below to answer number 1 through 2. So number 1 says write the slope-intercept form equation of the line. So if we are writing slope-intercept form, what are the two things that we need in order to write this equation? The slope and the y-intercept, the m and the b. So first I'm going to find my m. Since they're giving me a graph, that means I'm going to use rise over run, correct?
Yes.
Huh? No. All right, so first, what type of slope do I have here? A negative. So I know that I'm going to have negative right there. Now, I need to find two perfect points, right, to count my rise over my run. So I'm going to use the point that they've already given me, and then I'm going to use the y-intercept here. And can we go ahead and say that b equals what? 7. Okay, so now let's count how many we're going to go down. But first, let's see. The y values are counting by 1, yes? The x values are counting by 1. So we know we're counting by 1s. So I'm going down 1, 2, 3. So that's 3 on the top. And then I'm moving over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's negative 3 over 5. So remember my slope-intercept form is the y equals mx plus b. So what am I writing? Y equals negative 3 over 5. What's attached to it? X and then plus 7. Very good. Okay, number 2 says write the point slope form equation of the line using the point marked in the quadrant 2. Does everybody understand what quadrant 2 is? Do y'all know how they count with the quadrants? So right here is quadrant 1. This is 2, 3, 4. So it counts around like this. Okay? So this is my quadrant 2. This is the point they're wanting me to use. What point is that?
Negative 5.
It is what? Negative 5 and what? 10. And then we already said our slope was what? Negative 3 over 5. So remember, my point slope form is the y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1, where we're filling in this, this, and this. Those are the only things that will not stay in my equation when I write it. Okay, so now when we write it, we're saying y minus what? 10 equals, very good, negative 3 over 5, parentheses, x plus 5, because my x value is negative, so it changes the sign, and then we just close our parentheses. Okay, any questions over that?
No.
Awesome. Okay, number 3 says, Ronald's new Toyota Prius has just left the gas station with initial gas capacity of 11.7 gallons. This initial gas capacity of 11.7 tells me that it is the y-intercept or the slope? It is the y-intercept, that initial value, right? That was one of the keywords that we used. So we know that b equals 11.7. We don't know if we need it yet, but we're just going to go ahead and write it because that's what we recognize it as. All right, so it says, assuming he drives at a constant speed, his tank uses gas at a rate of 0.2 gallons per mile. So this per right here tells me that the 0.2 is my what? My slope. So m equals 0.2. All right, so now it wants me to write a slope-intercept form equation that relates the number of gallons remaining in the tank and the number of miles driven. So again, the slope-intercept is the y equals mx plus b. So I'm writing what? Y equals 0.2
Plus 11.7.
Very good. Y equals 0.2x plus 11.7. Any questions on that? Okay, Josh, this is not sleepy time. Okay, number 4, Houston Puppy Daycare charges $2 per hour. $2 per hour, that tells me $2 is what? It is the slope, so m equals 2. for each dog that it cares for. New customers are charged a one-time fee of $11. That one-time fee is my what? My y-intercept. So b equals 11. So now it says which of the values above represents the slope? We already found it. It was what? 2. So again, we'll just write m equals 2. And then it says which of the values above represents the y-intercept? 11. So b equals 11. Ready for number 5? Okay. Number 5 says the table represents the graph of a linear function. Write an equation in point slope form and use the last point in your answer. So I'm using this one?
No.
This one? Yes, I'm using this point right here. What else do I need? Am I ready to write it, or do I need something else? I need to write an equation, but do I have everything I need to write that equation? I need my slope. So I can do 2 things here. I can either do stat edit, or I could do delta y over delta x, right? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and just do delta y over delta x, but if you want to do stat edit, you do stat edit. All right, so if I'm going from negative 268 to negative 196, I know that I am increasing, right?
Yes.
I'm increasing by what? What's 268 minus 196? I just need to know the difference. What is it? 32? 72? I don't know. I haven't checked it. So 72. And then if I'm going from negative 20 to negative 14, I'm also increasing by what? By 6. So therefore my m is the delta y over delta x. So 72 divided by 6 is what? 12. So this is 12. Now do I have everything I need to write it in point slope form? Okay, so remember point slope form is that y minus y1 equals m times your x minus x1. So I have y plus 40 because my y value is negative equals 12 and then x plus 1 because again my x value is negative, so it changes it to a plus sign. Okay, number 6. It says the line y plus 7 equals 3 over 5 times x minus 10 passes through which point? So I'm pulling out the points, right? This 10, is it my x or my y? It is my x. This 7 is the y. So now, when I pull it out, is it going to be the same or the opposite? The opposite. So this negative 10 becomes positive 10. This positive 7 becomes negative 7. Okay, number 7. Write the equation of a line in point slope form that has a slope of negative 2 and passes through the point negative 914. Do I have everything I need to write it? Yes, they've given me everything, right? All right, so then I have y, what? Minus 14 equals negative 2 plus 9. Very good. And the only reason this one didn't say minus was because my x value was negative. Okay, number 8, we need to convert to slope-intercept form. So that means I'm taking the point slope form and I want to put it in the form of y equals mx plus b. So I'm getting y by itself. Holy cow, I can't talk. So remember, this requires me to do 2 steps. The first thing I need to do is get rid of the parentheses. So what I'm going to do is distribute this 5 over 6 to everything that's inside the parentheses. So that leaves me with y minus 10 equals, so 5 over 6 times x is just 5 over 6x. And then 5 over 6 times 18 is going to be 15. And that is because 18 divided by 6 gives me 3, and 3 times 5 gives me 15. Now, am I done? No, we still have one more thing to do so we can get y by itself. What do we need to do? We just need to add 10. So we know that this zeroes out. So we bring down our y equals, we bring down the 5 over 6x, and then we combine our like terms, which gives us 25. Okay, 9 says, which equation does not correctly represent the graph on the right? Okay, so I'm just looking for one, right, that does not represent this graph. So when I look at all these, all of them have the same slope except for which option? D does not have the same slope. So automatically that tells me it has to be D. Because all the rest of them have the same slope, right? And we're looking for the one that is not the correct equation for this line. Ready to flip it over? Okay. Okay, number 10 says write the equation of a line that has an undefined slope and passes through the point -12, 5. Undefined. Undefined slope. So we should be thinking Hoy bucks, right? So are we using y equals or x equals? X equals because of the undefined slope. So I'm looking for the x value. What's my x value? -12. So x equals -12 would be my equation. Number 11, write the equation of a line that passes through the point 4, -17 and has a slope of 0. Huh? What is it? Very good. Y equals -17. And she knew it was y equals because it was a slope of 0, which means we're using the Hoy, right? So we have to have y equals the y value. Okay, so for 12 through 15, we're using either one of these equations, right? All right, number 12 says for us to find g of 10. So that means I'm using this g of x, yes? Okay, the 10 value, is that the x value or the y value? It is the x. So right now I know that x equals 10. So if they're giving me x, I'm looking for y. So in my calculator, I'm going to y equals, and I'm inputting the equation that they gave me. So I have 1 over 4 x minus 5. So once I get my equation in, I want to go to the table. And I want to go to wherever x equals 10, and I see that y is what? Very good, -5 over 2. So that means g of 10 equals -5 over 2. Let's skip on down to 14 because it's still relating to the g of x equation, right? So it's saying g of x equals -10. So is that my x or my y that equals -10? It is my y that equals -10. So if they're giving me y, I'm looking for x. So now I need to look for when y is -10. I have to scroll on this side. I think you're right. It is -20. So on those function notations, the important thing for you to do is recognize which value that they're giving you so that you can find the value that you're missing. Okay, let's work on 3 and 15. So this time we're using r of x, right? So let's go ahead and put our equation in y equals, which is 6.5 parentheses x plus 3. So 13 says r of -7. This -7 is our x or our y? It is our x. So it is x that equals -7. So I'm looking for y. It is negative, what did you say, 26? That is correct. So r of -7 equals -26. Okay, 15 saying r of x equals 78. So is that x or y that's 78? It is y. Because remember, if it's inside the parentheses, that's what tells us it's x. So y equals 78. So I'm looking for x. And you said it's what? 9. I believe you're right. Very good. It is 9. Okay, any questions on that function notation? Nope. Let's go to 16. 16 says if f of x equals 3x and hx is steeper than f of x, write your own equation that could represent h of x. So if it's saying that it's steeper, is it talking about the slope or the y-intercept? It's talking about the slope. Is the slope larger or smaller? It is larger. So I just need any number that's larger than 3. 4. Okay, so I'm going to say 4 because that's what I heard first. So that means h of x equals 4x. Ready for 17? 17 says, if f of x equals 2x and g of x is flatter than f of x, write your own equation that could represent g of x. So if it's saying it's flatter, is that talking about y-intercept or slope? It's talking about the slope again. So would the slope need to be increasing or decreasing? Decreasing. So I need a slope that's smaller than 2. I'm going to use that 3/4. So g of x is going to be 3 over 4x. All right, any questions over those? Nope. So remember, if you don't remember which description goes with what, I have the anchor charts over here that give you those words so to help you remember if it's talking about slope or y-intercept and if it's increasing or decreasing. So make sure you use those tomorrow. Okay, 18. It says write the equation of a function a of x if it translates f of x up 5 units. So if it's translating it up 5 units, it is talking about the y-intercept. So would I be adding 5 or subtracting 5? I would be adding because I'm going up. So the only time it's the opposite is whenever we're talking about horizontal shifts. So I would have a of x equals, we're going to say f of x plus 5. You got it, Abby? You understand? Okay. All right, number 19. Write the equation of a function b of x if it translates f of x left 5 units. So this is talking about what type of transformation if we're going left? Horizontal. It's talking about horizontal because horizontal is either left or right. So I know it's got to be inside the parentheses, right? So I know I'm going to have f parentheses x and then something and then 5. Now, if I'm going to the left, I would have to have a plus. Because remember, the left goes towards the negative values, but we have to do the opposite here. So we're going to put a plus sign. If it's horizontal. And yeah, if you're looking for values, like on the function notation, the x values are inside the parentheses. Okay, number 20. So it says, how does the graph of f of x equal 3x minus 5 compared to the graph of c of x equals 3x? So what we want to do here is focus on their slopes and their y-intercept. So if I'm looking at f of x slope and c of x slope, what do I notice about them? They have the same slope of 3, right? Both have a slope of 3. Now, the y-intercept. What is my y-intercept for f of x?
3.
Negative 5. Remember, it's the one that's by itself. So b here is negative 5. What's my y-intercept for c of x? It is 0. So does that put f of x above or below c of x? Below. So we're going to say c of x is 5 units higher. No, I didn't want to use that. Higher than f of x. Or you could say f of x is 5 units lower than c of x. You could flip it around like that as well. Ready for 21? Okay, 21 says describe the transformations of function f of x if d of x equals 1 over 6 f of x, or f times x minus 1. So when I first, or let me just say this, f of x is going to equal x. That's what we're going to compare it to, since they didn't give us one to compare it to. If f of x equals x, what is my slope for f of x? It is 1. And my slope of d of x is what? 1/6. So is that slope increasing or decreasing? It's decreasing. So that is a vertical compression. It's a vertical compression when it's getting smaller. And then we're going to have to put and, because now we have to talk about this, what's inside the parentheses. So since it's inside the parentheses, we know it's what type of transformation? It's horizontal. So if it's saying -1, that tells me I'm going to the right. So I would have horizontal, shift, right, 1 unit. Are y'all ready for 22? Okay, 22 says, describe the transformation of function f of x if m of x equals 6 times f of x plus 1. So again, we're going to say that f of x equals x. So what was my slope for my f of x? 1. And then it's going to 6. So this time it is increasing. So that's what? A vertical stretch. And then what is my y-intercept of f of x? If I don't have a plus or minus anything, it's what? 0. It's not the same as like the slope, right? Whenever we don't have a value in front of the x, that's when we know it's 1. But for the y-intercept, if there's not a plus or minus anything, we automatically should know that it's 0. So if it's going from 0 to 1, we know that it is increasing. So it would be shifting up. So we would then have a vertical shift up 1 unit. You all ready for the last one? Okay. So it says, given the function y equals 4x, write a new equation that translates the function 9 units to the left and is vertically stretched. So the 9 units to the left, is that vertical or horizontal? It's horizontal, so we know it has to be inside the parentheses. Okay, and then for the vertically stretched, would my slope be increasing or decreasing? Increasing. So what can we write our new slope as? 5. We can say 5. We'll say m is 5 now. So now I'm going to have y equals 5. And then inside the parentheses, we're going to put x, what? We're going to the left, plus 9. Oh, I forgot to, or I guess it doesn't matter, because it's just like that. You could also just say 5 and then f your x plus 9, like that. Either one of those would work. Okay, any questions? No? Are y'all ready to ace this test tomorrow?
Yeah.
Okay. I like the yeses.